Hey, what's good, people? This is the Option Podcast. I'm back. I'm back in Hermosa Beach. And guess who else is back in Hermosa Beach? That's Gene Dolan. That's what it looks like. We're going to find out. Buckle up. The episode starts right now. It's good, Gene.
Hey, Jay, so it was great to be back here. Love
Yeah,
doing these with you. We had so much fun the last time. Let's hit
yeah.
another one out of the park.
Got to give the people what they want. Got to give the people what they want. Along with Gene Dolan, I'm Jason DeBeas. This is the Option Podcast. I stopped naming episodes because I have so many right now. If I start numbering them, we're in trouble. Olympics. Let's start. Let's have a good time. I have not watched any match today yet because my wife and I enjoy watching them together, and unless it's Taryn, Kloth, and Kristen Nuss, and I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I kind of stayed away from the TV, but have you been watching?
I have watched some of it, yes. And I just want to, one of the things that we talked about, one of the things on our list for today is to talk about, Olympians, international competition versus, domestic competition in the AVP. As you know, maybe your audience doesn't know, but I coach in Brazil 6 months a year. And I have to tell you that, what I do see in my international teams down there, they're not all Brazilian. They're from all over. They're from Canada, Denmark, um, the Philippines. They're not the smoothest people on the beach that show up. They're not the tannest people on the beach that show up. But you know what they are? They are fundamentally effing sound.
Right.
And those are the things that I think we just don't have in this country. We get surprised. We do wonderful things. We have competitive game plans, but without those fundamentals just ingrained in us. You see these guys and they're out there and they're a little clunky. They're not smooth at all, Jason. And then they come out there and they destroy you because they just play north-south ball. They play north-south ball. They don't get overexcited. They don't smile and high five each other. They just stick to what they're doing. It was such an eye opener for me when I went down there a couple of years ago and took that first coaching gig.
Yeah.
So that's what they have. That's an advantage that the internationals have. We could talk about the ball, we could talk about the pace, but it really is the coaching. The coaching is so focused on discipline and fundamentals. And that's what I'm trying to bring here
I
to our South Bay community.
Well, I have an old saying that some people take exception to, but the historical reality is consistent with my correlation, which is not causation, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you see talent on the West Coast, it's the players. If you see talent in the Midwest, it's the coaching. If you see talent in the East Coast, it's the immigration population. And the immigration population, like you said, is the recipient. And what do you call it? The residue of good coaching, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
we have Little Brazil in New York. We have Brighton Beach, which is predominantly Russian. I hung out with a lot of those guys, and they just hit, and their blocking technique and their press and their timing, and when the layoff is just something that I'm familiar with because I played overseas for 2 years too. So,
Yeah.
and here's let's do a little comparison and contrast. I'd like to just knock
Sure.
something out of the box,
Sure.
right? There's always been a question of drive about who wants that, and I just want to not eliminate that from our conversation because the teams international in Brazil they're there because they want it. You're right, and this is not exactly a rich person sport, right? And some people are there for the nostalgia, right, because they're rich
Okay.
kids. But there are a lot of people if they didn't want it, they wouldn't be there. And that leads, and that is segue to exactly what you're talking about. They
What's
want it. What's missing, right?
what's the alternative?
Right, but we want to just eliminate
Yes.
drive and
Right.
and the want to do it. There are some people
Right.
that pretend to want it, but they're not probably playing open anyway.
Yeah.
Or that level of open. Right? You know how like we have tiers in the AVP, like top of the main draw, like bottom of the main draw, top of the qualifier, this and that. So, and it frog leaps and jump ropes right past the drive and the want coaching. Exactly what you're talking about.
So, what I've realized after coaching both extremes, right, is, and nothing bad here. It's just the culture here. There is a culture here, right? If you lose, you go down to 21st Street, you have a beer, you play some four-man, you pick up
play some ace, yeah. Go sing karaoke.
Whatever. Yes, to put it really mildly, okay? Down there, you lose, you go back to hard labor. And I'm talking, you're toting those big, heavy mache barrels, serving drinks to gringos on the beach, up and down that beach in that heat, all day, every day, because that's the life for many, many people, many players. They sell incense on the beach. They sell popcorn on the beach. They sell cheese on a stick on the beach.
Right.
Up and down the beach, hard labor. So those people, they're very, very focused. They're very, very disciplined, much like some of the, professional athletes that I've trained, Greg Little, one of my NFL guys, he played in the NFL 8 years, Those people listen because the difference between starting and benching can be millions of dollars a year.
Right.
So if you tell them what to do, they do it, and they drive down their bad habits. So that other guy, Dan Denham, the baseball pitcher, he listened because that's the environment that he came from. Not this, hey, we hang on the beach, we drink, we date all the girls, and it's just completely different. There are no door prizes in the NBA, per se that way, right?
Right. Well, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. It seems like a pretty good life to live too, right? And there are certainly exceptions to that rule. There are people that can party all night that are just really, really talented. But at the same time, if you're just going to put yourself where you're okay with losing to anyone that has talent, then that's also the life you choose too. So this sounds like we're crapping on a certain type of person, but no, we're just highlighting a reality, which leads to my next question, which is again what I think we're getting to. Let's say there is drive. Let's say this person is like, let's say they're right. You throw someone in the pool in the South Bay. That's not the deep end. They're gonna be fine. Where Brazil, like you said, they have to swim or they're gonna drown. Right. So that's the best metaphor I know how to use it. But let's say there are some guys out here that have that ultimatum, as well, or that consequence. They're still missing an important dynamic, right? They have the drive, but they're missing the what we just said in the beginning of this conversation.
They're missing fundamentals. A lot of times they're missing coaching because many of the athletes around the world in this sport, I mean, many of them are just, Jason, they're just super freak athletes.
Right.
I mean, I could name a couple that are super freak athletes that in my mind, they could be at the top, no problem, but they just don't see the game.
Right.
They don't see the fundamentals. They don't see the game. And, it's just when you look at the extra steps that they take because of bad positioning, bad spacing, bad visibility, and that's all caused by, all this east-west stuff. Mm-hmm. There is a guy that I would like to point out, but I'm not going to say his name. All I could say is that I looked at that guy, and I've coached him, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is such a super freak athlete. And he just doesn't see it. But now he's playing with a Brazilian. He's playing with Mamouche. He's playing with Alisson.
Right.
And they're kicking butt, and I really expect them to do well. Alisson has been a great coach, partner, influence on this person.
Yeah, and you know what? Some of the advantage of having not just a Brazilian partner, but a partner where like English isn't their first language. The few words they use mean something, right? Pompeo Mercadante, who I coached with it in the summer, right? It was Trevor and Try's coach for the audience. He once
I
said,
worked with him.
yeah.
I used to work with him. And when
The
they
guy,
were-
and that's the cool thing. The guy worked with everybody,
Yeah.
and that's what makes him such a great coach. He didn't come here from Hio assuming he knew everything. He worked with everyone. He was with Endless Summer with me, Jeff Samuels, Miles Evans. By the way, he was in the Olympics.
yeah, and he
They were.
worked
We were
with
all part of that
Marcio.
clip.
Marcio, myself, Pompilio worked
but-
with Troy and Eric.
I remember it was a juniors game, and it was a timeout, and he said, "Good serves makes good defense." Now, that can mean so many things to everybody, but this timeout where this person's trying to stay focused and maybe too much information might cause something you and I call paralysis through analysis, right? Well, I mean, for anyone that doesn't know what that means, we'll explain that later. And I always think I'm the best coach in the world until I'm not. And then this guy said in 5 words what it would take a paragraph. I'm like, I could have saved 2 paragraphs of the previous team I coached 2 days ago, right? And they probably needed information at this finite amount of time that they can take with them. That wasn't too much. Good serves makes good defense, right? You and I might be thinking 2 different things on that, but what he said was everything. and English not being his first language is what gave him that advantage.
Right, right. I always say less is more in many situations. And what I used to stress to my engineers was, hey, let's do the things that we know that we can do. And chances are the things that you thought were too difficult will become that more apparent, and they will fix themselves.
Right.
Serve good serves. Let them screw up. You're down, you're struggling on defense, just get the serve where you want to, and chances are that they will be forced into a compromised shot or a compromised hit.
Right. I mean,
Instead of trying to worry about something that you have little control over, let's just focus on the things that we can control, and then there's a good chance that the other things that you couldn't control will start falling into place.
well, as far as things you can control is concerned, I think the reason why he said few words is because the things that you can control, a lot of it was done through process, practice, and preparation. Process and technique, then practice and preparation. So you have this guy that's kind of with you, before this tournament for let's just say 14 days, give or take, right? Maybe 6 practices in 14 days, 7, maybe half the time. That's it. The controllables are already there. Like you said, with serve, I guess serve being the 100% controllable, right? It's the prime example. You and I can get in. We can go back and forth on the encore controllables like free ball, down ball, right? That's something. 80-20, 90-10, depending on your level, right? In system setting, right? You get a perfect pass. The other team can't make you set poorly, right? So, playing the right spot at the right time, committing to your base 1, watching all 3 hits.
Body attitude, body position on the court,
Body position.
Body attitude also,
Yeah,
just
keep going.
little,
Let's keep this rolling.
little simple things that you don't realize, but when you drop your arms on a pass, when you drop your arms on a dig, it takes too long to get them up. Just keep them up and bring one arm to the other, and you have to focus on that sidestep. I remember telling Chase when they were starting to work Miles really hard, when they were starting to make their run.
Right.
I told Chase, I was like, you're going to win this. You're going to get to where you need to be by your first lateral step. Everybody talks about the pass. Well, what is it about the pass? It's the speed of that first lateral step. When you watch Roger Federer, when you watch Novak, when you watch all those top guys playing in tennis,
Right.
and they're taking that serve receive, as soon as their opponent throws the ball up in the air, their feet are just bouncing back and forth, figuring out the only thing on their mind. Am I going left or am I going right?
Right.
Andy Benish. Tried to work with him several times. That guy, he starts too deep, and on the serve, he takes a step forward first.
On serve receive, you
on
mean?
serve receive.
Right.
I don't care where the serve is coming from.
Right.
He takes a step forward on serve receive. That changing that much body mass from going forward to going side to side, it's too hard.
Yeah, because it would require a second move.
It requires a second move, and then your S turning into, or your corner turning into a lateral
That's
step.
more like three moves now.
And it's really really hard, you know.
Right.
Best passers, they have built a consistent, confident spot on the court, which allows them to make that lateral move. You don't have to think about going short; it's automatic, you know.
Yeah.
But you do have to think about left or right, you know. And that is just so key, and that's where I think a lot of players struggle. If you watch even the best players, when they get tired, and they come to you on the sideline, and hey, look, we're in the semifinals here. We're 3 rounds in the playoffs. We had a really hard day yesterday. I all of a sudden, like, you're just not moving your feet. You've got to force yourself to move your feet.
I would also suggest that, I mean, it's very, very, I mean, anyone who coaches knows that step forward comes just from indoor, right? You got a 3-person pass. He's at USC. You got these guys serving significantly faster, unless you're Evandro, right? The indoor serve is significantly faster, and you only have this amount of reaction time. So you're stepping forward, right? Anything that goes this way, you have a third passer, right? Anything that goes high, it's probably going to be out. Anything that hits the top of the tape, maybe the middle picks it up, but I think you're right on the footwork where where I think his style and technique requires him to make a second move or 2.5 moves, where I guess Beach, he figures he has enough time, but that's which is, and he does have enough time on the domestic scene. And then the international scene, where the serve to space, the jump floaters move a little bit faster. Evandro, I mean, guys like that, that's a different planet. You have to, you know what I'm saying? That's something you have to be ready for. And I think the reason why he's had success and has not gotten tired is because muscle memory-wise, if that's all you know, then that doesn't necessarily work against you either. So he would have to have a decision to make on that. I mean, we're talking, you and I are having a conversation on a right way to do this. Yeah. But if that's in your DNA, and if your muscles are used to doing that, that doesn't tire you. He's getting tired. I think just my coaching opinion, he's getting tired for other reasons than that.
Yeah.
Because he's been a machine his whole career. You know, as far as the gas tank is concerned. Thoughts?
If you look at what the players are doing in like super slow-mo.
Right.
Okay. You take that first step in.
I was going to say, you were talking about the hands.
You took that first step in, and then instead of taking that inside step and that little hop step and then gliding to get your hands out for the ball and taking it inside your knee, what happens is they tend to lean.
Right.
And then they put their outside foot first. And when you lean out, that means that your outside goes first, and then you have to cross your legs to get to the ball.
Right.
Which is exactly what you don't want to do. Hips, shoulders, feet always facing the net. Your eyes, your shoulders always facing the net. There's no good data, east or west. All the data that you want for this sport is down court, is on the other side.
Right.
When you pass,
are you speaking in terms of serve receive?
I'm speaking in terms of when these guys pass their partner across the court.
Right.
And then they swing out wide, right?
Okay.
I mean, they're looking east-west for the set, and they never see the block. They never see what the defender is doing because they're focused east-west.
But that is highly contingent on where the pass winds up, though.
Right.
I mean, because indoor the sets are east and west, and
no, but a lot of
hitters have plenty of court vision coming out.
A lot of guys pass the middle of the court. They get a nice pass off, and then they swing way wide.
Right.
And they want to come in because they think they have more court to hit, more court to work with. And when they swing wide, they get outside on a nice high pass, and then they wait for that set. Mm-hmm. And one of my lefty partners, the guy that we were referring to before, that guy gets blocked all the time because that's the way he plays his power game.
Right. And I certainly appreciate North-South because you have to be able, well, for me, the way I've been teaching a lot of my juniors, I've been on their serve receive. As soon as the ball's passed, I have them look literally across the net. And when they look literally across the net, they look back at the ball. And now peripherally, They have everything, and it supports your argument because if it's north-south, it's here, and if they're moving here, right, and if they're squaring up, going out and in, sometimes it's their vision is just here and here. I'm sorry for the audio people that can't see this, but for the video people, lucky for you. And the more the pass goes this way, right, the more they're going to be relying on the call because they're losing more of their court vision. But I would also suggest north and south. Anything that goes this way, their court vision's gone.
You
anyway.
have to always pass where you want to hit from. If you want to pass,
well, we call it tethering. Yeah, together.
If you tether, you should be tethering, right?
I think it's a good teaching tool, and
Yes.
I think everyone should know how to do that.
So what we do when
Sorry,
I'm teaching,
I need the caffeine. Sorry, jeez.
We try as coaches. First of all, coaching it really is an art. I don't care
100%.
who is your coach.
Mm-hmm.
Let me back up. Coaching is 100% is 95% relationships, 5% technique. Arguable, okay, but I'm just trying to make a point.
No, but we're talking about a particular level here.
If you could have the greatest coach, but if you in your mind don't respect that coach and don't want to be coached by that coach, you will not. He is not your coach.
No,
he's not your guy. You have to want to be coached. You have to say to yourself, yes, I respect this guy. I look at what he's done with other teams, with other people, and I respect him, and I want to be coached by him, and I will listen to him.
right.
That's the way it works. Big question right now is J.J. Redick going to be able to coach LeBron James? Do they have that relationship where LeBron James, being the leader of a team, is going to let a rookie coach tell him what to do on the court, tell him what to do, how to do it, and when to do it?
I think we're talking in terms of LeBron James. Really, he just needs a strong personality to make sure the team doesn't beat themselves, right? Ty Lue, who I did not. I'm sorry. He was, as far as coaching actual basketball is concerned, him and Blatt aren't even on the same platitude. David Blatt is a far superior coach than Ty Lue. I'm sorry. David Blatt was from Russia, right? He came in and he coached basketball the only way he knew how. Otherwise, he would let the inmates run the asylum. So he had a certain way of coaching, and if he made a mistake, the man went to the press conference, yep, that was me. And in this cancel culture where, like, he should be fired for every mistake, right? This guy's got the balls to admit it. I knew he wasn't going to last long in a league like the NBA. So in terms of actual real coaching and X's and O's and momentum and this and that, David Blatt was probably the only coach we've seen that got fired with the best record in basketball at the time, right? But the NBA is just a different animal. You had the coach from the Toronto Raptors that got fired the year he got Coach of the Year. So maybe we switch football or something where the coaches have more value, or basketball, maybe we consolidate it to some of these mainstays like Popovich and why he commands respect. Larry Brown, why he commands respect. Larry Brown was my favorite one, by the way. Jeff Van Gundy.
Larry Brown.
How about Jeff Van Gundy? He's never played in the NBA. He's played high school basketball, but he was an acolyte of Pat Riley. And not only did the team respect him, when in 1989, when they were the 8th seed, and they made the NBA Finals, with 19 seconds left, everyone knew they were going to beat the Pacers. Madison Square Garden is chanting Jeff Van Gundy. No, the only time as a New Yorker I've ever heard anyone cheer a head coach's name in the Garden.
Unfortunately, in the NBA, much like other pro sports that have a long playoff season, the regular season, where you play one team a night and then you go to the next team and then you go to the next team.
Sometimes
that is really defined by players and attrition. But when you get to the playoffs, the playoffs is far more coaching than it is player interaction.
And absolutely, and
playoff records define the wealth of a coach's ability.
And at that level, it's about letting the moose loose, right? I remember Steve Kerr his first year when he was coaching Steph Curry, and you could see him on the sideline screaming, "No, like don't shoot the three, no, no," and then it goes in, it just goes, like fine. So it's one of those things where those first few years you get to know your player, right? And here's the cool thing, and this is where the players start respecting coaches who maybe they might have more respect for another coach. You kind of let them be free a little bit when they struggle. And this is the caveat. This the whole time you're not respecting this coach. The whole time you're not respecting this coach. As soon as you go in thinking you have all the answers, and that team starts beating you up, who's the first person they're running to with puppy dog eyes? Please help me. All this time you could have been listening to that guy you didn't respect, and now when someone is acing you off the court or whatever, and this and that, who is the first person you run to? That dude. So how about, from the player's perspective, speaking from a coach, how about you give everybody the benefit of the doubt that just whether you know who they are, a reputation or not? Because I'll say it like this, and keep your thought. Shannon Sharp once said, just because you see where someone's standing doesn't mean you know how they got there. You just don't know. No one ever met Pompeo. He just seems like a fat Brazilian guy. That dude could coach. That dude can coach. He's just got
a cannon and the most consistent, coaching arm.
Yeah. I mean, Mark Burek had to learn how to be a good coach. Mark Burek had an idea. Yeah. Had an idea, and because he's the only guy that's coaching at this mass level, coaching adults in the South Bay, because we only care about juniors and adult professionals. We don't care about regular adults. So he had this idea and this ideal, and I think his coaching flaw, and he's more than welcome to come on the show because I give it to everybody. I think he would see the way someone plays and see their failure and how it would relate to him. And once you, as a player who becomes a coach, starts thinking like, I can do this, why can't they? Is when you start to have problems as a coach. I'm not going to say fail as a coach, because the guy's already had his wins and losses, and now Mark is exactly where he needs to be. God bless that dude. God bless that dude. And he's not talked about enough. Hagen and Logan Webber and Hagen Smith's coach for the MBO semifinals, right? But I was getting somewhere with this, and I hope I didn't forget. And I think it's because I think people give more credit to people as former players, and because this is our first subject matter about how to articulate and how to get that message across and be a good coach. And that's the reason why Magic Johnson wasn't a good coach. That's the reason why Isaiah Thomas wasn't a good coach. All these guys won rings. And then you have Jeff Van Gundy, who played high school basketball, is a better coach than them. You got Chuck Daly, who's never dribbled a basketball in his life, is a better coach than them, right? So do you still have your thought? Because I just went off.
Phil Jackson.
Let's do it.
He appreciated and articulated and emulated the very essence of confidence. And that's what it takes.
Yeah. Yep.
When he was with the Lakers and he had his 5 guys out on the court, maybe they weren't all starters.
Right.
Okay. And they get into trouble. You didn't see him making a whole lot of substitutions. Instead, he would give them their confidence. Hey, look, you guys put yourself here. Now figure out how to get out of it. Right. And they always seemed to get out of it. He didn't panic. He was not a panicky coach. Instead, he took that opportunity, win or lose, get out of it or not. He took that opportunity and that to show his players his confidence in them, not just their confidence in him.
Right.
So that two-way street, and I like to talk to my players after a match, win or lose, and say, okay, here's what I want to talk about. Where did you guys really feel that you lost this match? Well, coach, we got tired in the third and stuff and I'm like, okay, very good. That's your perspective. You guys lost this at the end of the second set when you had a chance to go up 2-0 and close this thing out. And you got a little sloppy, you got a little interactive with the crowd maybe an artifact where you just lost your focus at 12 at 12-11 in the second set. That's where you decided for yourselves that you were going to lose this match.
Very interesting.
So it's important to have that AAR. We used to do AARs on some of my investigations when I was in aerospace, right? You get done with a program and you say, oh my God, you know, we did this, we did a good job, but we came in, you know, we were 16 months over schedule and this amount over budget and stuff. Where did we go wrong? What could we have done to make this better? And it's those discussions that allow them to see perspective, that fuel that consistency and confidence.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a lot of that can be, as far as preventative maintenance is concerned, in practice. Process and preparation. Maybe I live in a video room like a hermit, and anyone that wants to watch videos with me is more than welcome to. And you know, and really only 1 year that I have a whole group of kids that wanted to come in all the time. You had to kick them out, but those were academics, and those kids were just inherently interested. That was Hunter High School, and that's the school that leads the nation, or had led the nation in cumulative SAT scores and Ivy League application accepted. So the, you know, different animal, but how much do you as a coach have that emphasis on practice, process, technique, preparation, and how much of that carries to the game? Because what you just said, you're talking about what you might say after a game. You're certainly not going to say it between sets. You're not going to say it during the technical timeout.
Right. So when you play hockey, just for instance, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you play hockey, you invent moves that nobody's ever seen, that you never thought you were capable of, but then you're doing it, you know? And you make a great play because you're forced to do this. All we can do, Jason, is give them fundamentals. Here's a hammer. This is how you use a hammer. Look at all the fun things you can do with a hammer. Wow, I never thought of that. Look at all, wow, I learned 30 things I could do with a hammer, right? Here's a screwdriver. Here's a saw. Here's a router. Here's a circuit. Look at all the things I can. Now, when you get into the game, you need to go build a house, or you need to go build something that's spectacular.
Right.
You cannot be out there telling them what to do on every play. But what we do is we do coach fundamentals. Now, I
that's called checking your box. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, high elbow, approach, take your eye off the ball. After you get a good pass off, you should be able to take your eye off the ball for a second to slow yourself down instead of creeping in, right? So these are the types of drills, these pass yourself, set yourself drill that we do that allow you to at least appreciate what fundamentals can do for you. Now, when they're swinging, when they're doing their shots, they all look the same. We drill it into them. When you go play a real game, I can tell who's playing 5 courts over, not seeing their faces, but I know that that's so-and-so because of the way they pass.
Right.
You have your own style. But with that own style, with yourself, with with who you are, you do have an appreciation for the fundamentals. And the fundamentals, if you look hard enough and you slow that film down, you slow that reel down just slow enough, you will see the fundamentals there. It's just that everybody has their own style.
Right. And I need coaches out there to be very, very careful, because there are coaches that are adamant about skills over drills. There are coaches that are adamant about midline versus angle passing, even though there are coaches that are adamant about positive reinforcement versus, tough love. And my opinion on that, no championship team exists with exclusively either or. But a drill is not bad. A drill is only bad if the coach doesn't understand the drill himself. I'll give you an example. I did a warm-up drill for indoor, right? Where me and you, we have 2 balls. There's one ball I'm rolling on the floor, and the other ball, we're passing to each other. So when you're passing, I'm rolling the ball on the floor to you. And when the ball comes to me, I'm passing and you're rolling the ball back. Now, what's the purpose of this drill? I mean, it looks like a lot of fun, and maybe it's a chance for everybody to shake their sillies out. Maybe there's a relationship you invent with your pepper partner or someone that you're ranger buddying with that day, if not for multiple practices. But as a coach, I'm like, are they in the athletic stance when they're doing this the whole time, or are they just bending forward, right? And doing the ball and then coming up and passing, bending forward and doing that. Now, if they're bending forward, right, then you're supporting the argument over the skills over drills people, right? Because I like this drill's a waste of time, or they're not doing this. And I'm like, it's not a bad drill. It's just incumbent upon the coach to when the reason why he's running the drill in the first place, he's trying to get them into the muscle memory. And the drill is designed to get them into the muscle memory of constantly being in the athletic stance. Mm-hmm. That's the purpose of that drill. Right. Anybody else would be like, oh, this is the dumb drill. Oh, I don't know what you're doing, but I would never teach my kids this. And I'm like, you're a pompous ass, dude. You know, and you don't understand the drill. Like when you have the drill like that, you want other coaches to pick it apart. You want coaches to have confirmation bias. So for what I suspect. So that's just an example of understanding the drills you're running, but not just that. I wanted to stay with this articulation and just communication and proper ways to communicate, because the Phil Jackson thing was fantastic. And something that Phil did, and this is what I think you're really good at, because you're just this brilliant guy. You're good at presenting people their options. For example, you'll love this one. Let's say you're coaching juniors, right? Ball goes off a defender. Girl takes one step, looks at it, doesn't go for the ball. You would come up to her and be like, so what's the percentage? What's the if you ran, what was the probability that you touch it? Right? Give me a number. 30%, 20%, 30%. Okay, fine. Cool. 30%. Now, what's the probability if you don't go at all? It's zero. And that's I'm speaking for you, but that's one of the things I like about you. And that's what Phil was good at. Phil wanted to get Shaq in shape. He just said, you ever try yoga? When you're in California, it's a good lifestyle. So, and that's one of the things I like about your style of coaching. And I'd like you to pick up more where I left off as far as coaching that personality. When to be tough on some people, or just presenting them their options, you know?
I don't get upset with my players. I get a little disappointed with them because a lot of times I get more disappointed with them when they get disappointed with themselves.
Right.
Torrin is a perfect example. Okay.
He's exhausting.
When I work with players, right. there's working with players, and mm-hmm. then there's working with teams. Mm-hmm. Okay. And my 4 bigs are visibility, spacing, body attitude, body position. Okay?
Right.
And when I'm working, when I see a deficiency in one of those, I immediately think footwork, you know? Yes, on spacing, you have the wrong spacing for that pass. You just dug a ball, a short cutty. You just dug a deli thin. You got a nice pass off. You got a nice high pass up, and you're standing under the ball instead of taking those couple of steps back. I don't really care what you do with the ball. I don't care if the ball goes a mile out, but you have to start from ground zero. You have to start with your feet. And he's like, oh, I can't believe I hit that out. I'm so. I was like, hey, you know what? Your footwork was great. Let's just focus on starting with your feet, and I promise you everything else will start to fall into place. Again, visibility and spacing are key. You have to keep your eyes focused down the court, and you have to let a defender and a blocker know that you know exactly where they are, as opposed to letting them surprise you. Spacing is so important. And body attitude, you have to be ready for a ball. You can't be standing there with your arms on the ground, your arms lying at your side. You have to be ready for that ball, and body position on the court. You just made a great hit, you made a great shot. all of a sudden it's dug, and you're not in a good position to defend it because you're sitting there gloating over how great your shot, you thought your shot was, right? So those are the things that I focus on. So up front, I will come out and I was like, okay, this next drill is going to be a visibility and spacing drill. When we do defense, it really is about body position and body attitude. I don't really care what happens. I just want to know that what I'm trying to give you so that you can appreciate and incorporate into your style of play, that it will click. All of a sudden it clicks, right? That's what we do as coaches. And that's when you start to build respect from people. When all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I never saw it like that. Now I'm really excited to use this new tool in my toolbox. Same thing with, I look at guys like Taylor Crabb. That guy is 100% in love. That guy is in love. What is he in love with? He's in love with his shots. You have to be in love with your shots. Everybody wants to go out and hit. All the qualifier guys, all the big triples coming up, they just want to show that they can hit the crap out of the ball. And that's just not where the game is. When I'm coaching pro teams in a main draw event, I want to see onside outs. I want to see at least 60% shots. Transition balls, I want to see at least 70% shots.
Right.
You have to put that ball away on a transition ball.
Yeah, I would also suggest shots are usually set up from being more in system, right? Because if you're out of system, the shots are just more up and down, and they're just more readable by the defense. And I think that's a very interesting subject, and I wanted to ask that. I was going to talk about all the great work he did with Torin, this relative unknown who I was training a 16-year-old, and I had Torin jump in, and the 16-year-old was like, God, this guy's so calm. You know what I'm saying? He was such a good partner. He was encouraging. The body language is good. And he's evolved from that Torin to this Torin. It's Kiraly and Roshitz. They did a jump in on one of my practices with Torin, and I don't think they met him before. They're just like, all right, this guy's okay. And mind you, these are good players, right? The 16-year-old's a phenom, and Kiraly and Roshitz were in the semifinals against Alexander and Corin, 3-match points from being in the finals. So let's talk about shots versus hits. Are you the coach that emphasizes using shots to set up your hits, or
Absolutely.
using power to set up your
Absolutely.
shots?
No. Shots to set up your hits.
All right.
100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Something that is completely obvious. I mean, I tell people that's that spacing and visibility. I don't care where the pass goes. You have to have the exact same runway every time. Whether you're shooting line, whether you're deli thinning a cut, whether you're jumboing over a defender and over a blocker, I want to see the same exact approach every time.
Yeah.
That way, that consistency and your ability to get consistent and know that your partner, you make a good pass and your partner is going to set the same set every time. You have the same approach every time. That gives you that brief couple of milliseconds to take your eye off the ball and stare your defender down and let him see you do it.
All right, here's my pushback question. This is where we have a healthy debate. In order for your shot to work, doesn't the defense have to have a good faith belief that you're going to hit it?
That you can hit it.
Right.
Look at Phil Dahlhauser, one of the greatest. I mean, he's the Karch of our time.
I would say so, yeah.
And he doesn't hit.
His mentality.
He doesn't hit nearly as much as he shoots because he can hit, because he is that threat.
Right.
He is just a shot master.
And he has a cruise control, too.
He's a cruise control, and that was one of the subjects that we were going to talk about, football, When you look at the level of competition at the AVP and the FIVB, it's going up. It's trending up at a certain rate. I mean, you get your guys, and they're like, Gene, I really worked hard. I spent a lot of time at the gym last year, and I'm feeling so much better. I've got some new shots. I'm hitting harder, And I was like, yeah, well, that's just not going to be enough. You're still behind because you were going like this, but the venue's going like this. Phil Dahlhauser has been playing the same game for 30 years. Mm-hmm. He has got the same exact game that he's always had. he's just super consistent.
He is.
His game works at any level.
And it worked at every level because of the precision and accuracy of the shots themselves, right? I'll give you an example, like the Swedes, the jump setting and this and that, and Miles Partain, right? At some point, I knew good coaching was going to crack the code, and I acknowledge that some in system plays where you just misread it, you thought he was going to do this, and he got you. Because on a perfect pass, even with the third hit, he's going to get you. But after a while, the technique and people scouting them, like Mullen Surum lost to Partain and Benesh twice in that tournament, pool and then the finals. The very next tournament, it wasn't an easy fix, but his supercomputer, just like Ali San, fixed it. He sees Miles jump, he's like, nope. He's not hitting right now.
He's not hitting. He's not getting bitch slapped by that.
Yeah, and he was ready. And here's the cool thing about Miles, and I'm getting somewhere with this. Miles on his jump set is a very indoor square to the net set. So at least his margin for error is playing east-west, and that goes against your philosophy, which is Andy. So let's say you're trying to trick the block. Sometimes you trick the block and it's an accurate set. But if you're trying to trick the block, and if it's not accurate, you really have to make sure that block stays there so that guy can take that slightly out of system thing and hit it straight down. Because you know what happens? Like the Swedes facing the net and doing this. If the block's not fooled, and if you're a little bit off, the margin of error is going to go tight into the blocker's hands because you're going sideways or behind the hitter's head. Where Miles Partain, his margin for error is out and in. And if Andy's approaching out and in anyway, it's less trappy. And this is where I kind of loved just everybody being more creative, because that set requires a faster release, right? Yeah. You try deep dish in a jump set. You look like you're playing taps back in New York. But that's just an example of and I totally lost my thought about Phil. With a shot that everyone knows that's coming, like the certain dimensions are scouted out and you still can't stop it because the margin for error is so like the worst case scenarios are almost non-existent. He's a goofy foot too, so every time he has his lefty approach and he cuts back cross body, it's way up here. He jumps on an inside set, and you see a lot of goofy foots do that, right? Troy Field, Tina Gradina.
He comes with a bigger toolbox,
and deadly accurate toolbox. It's almost this.
He picks really good partners.
Yeah, you have to pick your poison.
Nick Lucena is one of the great shot makers of all time. Eric Baranek in his prime was one of the best. I mean, you knew where it was going, but you just couldn't get there.
Right.
Because he would paint lines all day long.
Right.
He just
yeah.
Well, he was that guy.
I think at that level, and this is an old partner of Phil's. I had Todd Rogers on the podcast.
Yeah.
Todd told someone he would shave a foot off of each side of the court. It's 12 inches sideline. That's where I can reach in one move. That's where I can reach in one move. I'm not trying to do more than that because I think I'll make it worse if I'm trying to leave quicker or overcompensate. So he's basically telling you, if you're perfect, you can win this game.
Right.
But anything less than perfect, you're gonna lose. And I think that's what divided Phil from a lot of people, because there were 3 or 4 dimensions and you couldn't cover everything and you had to pick your poison.
Right.
Like on the option, most blockers traditionally like to block cross court because it's into the right whatever, and then you force them to cut back. But Phil had a fantastic cutback, and a lot of people scouted him. They're like, you know what? I'd rather just let him hit cross and get, it's still a not likely dig to get, but a lot of people went the other way with that, and that's just through good coaching or whatever. But we're gonna say, Coach,
just picking a partner that complements you. I mean, I have to go back to Kent Steffes and Karch Kiraly.
Right.
Okay. Kent Steffes was not the greatest player, but he was the greatest player for Karch.
Right.
That guy would never do well in a King of the Beach tournament. You know?
Karch?
No, Kent Steffes.
Kent, yeah.
But with Karch, they won. They just dominated.
Yeah,
you know?
that's one of
There's
the best,
a synergy,
probably one of the best teams ever.
There's a synergy. I mean, I think, Kent learned a lot from Karch. Karch was able to mold his game around Kent's, abilities and deficiencies, and pick up the slap. That's just what he did. He was that good.
Yeah.
He had a lot of tools in the toolbox.
Karch or Kent?
Karch,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. He had more tools than anybody else.
Kent had this it factor as far as the winner's mentality was concerned. The guy, I mean, I don't know a lot about him, but like I could picture him throwing a fit at the ping pong table or like a pool table from the whole threat of actually losing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That kind of guy. And I mean, I had a kid like that 2 weeks ago, and I said, you think I'm going to be one of these parents giving you a pep talk saying don't feel bad about yourself? Hell no. That's how winners. If you are what you say you are, right? That's how you're supposed to feel if you lose.
There's a lot of characters. There are so many characters on the beach, as you know. I mean, I look at, you look at a guy like Newman, and you're like, he's probably the only person on the planet that 100% could really piss off Mother Teresa.
Yes.
I mean, he could do it.
Yeah, he's the type of guy that might convince her to pose for a centerfold, and then make her think, and then say it was her idea.
Yeah.
It was her. It wasn't my idea. It was hers.
But he's competitive.
Yeah.
But it's just, and I tell him, I was like, Dan, I'm sorry, but not everybody appreciates your brand of competitiveness.
He's a USC alum, man. His own people don't even stand up for him, man. I stand up for Dan because I know him and I love him. And
I got between the two of them. We were at Erks one night.
Yeah.
And this was after the six-man. The six-man.
Right.
So I was in there with Newman after the six-man last year, and OB walks in.
Who?
Steve
Obradovich.
Yeah. Okay. And he's an SC guy.
Right.
And they were competing for who could be the loudest badass in Erks, and I'm sitting between them, and that's when we were talking about Steve's foreman that he did last year.
Okay.
He was telling me all about it, and he's like, Gene, I want to have a GM for each team. You want to be a GM? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to, but I'm going to be in Brazil, so I had to miss that last year.
He could have been the Howard Stern of volleyball. Like, if he wasn't so bad, he wouldn't be so good, right? Like, I only played 1 year of college, Division III at Hunter, okay? Not even 1 year. I was there for 1 semester for a cup of coffee before I went to Germany, because I had a bunch of people that wanted to play together, and like 4 of us only went like a one-off to play with this all-American guy named Greg Romulus. And even with 1 semester, if you mess with one Hawk, you mess with them all. There's a loyalty just for me playing with those guys for 1 semester. Once a Hawk, always a Hawk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this dude is he people off so bad. Like there's this incident with Micah Maha, right? The USA against UCLA. And Micah, when he approached him, he had all like a gang of people behind him, like a gang full of people. And Daniel Newman didn't care. He was indifferent. But the thing that disappointed me, like, the cameras were like where they shake hands. The cameras were fixed on that to not show the incident. But I'm like, dude, if you're a Trojan, they should have all been. Come on. My guy,
but his own team.
Kofi, he had all these dudes and behind him, whatever, and this and that. And I'm like, come on, man. Y'all supposed to be Trojans. Y'all gonna let somebody do that to you and at USA? What? What? And the only reason why I brought this up, and the only reason why I could make light of this, right? Because they're sitting there pretending they hate the hell out of each other and be all deft enemies, right? 2 days later. And I'm lighting you up, Micah, who's on the national team. I'm lighting you up, Daniel Newman. 2 days later, I go to Hennessy's, right? And who's like PISS drunk with Greg Faulkner, just having drinks or whatever. It's Daniel Newman and Micah Maha. Like nothing happened. And believe me, I saw that video. Something happened. That's just a great thing about
Yeah,
Daniel Newman.
I miss
when
that,
to get
but
in there.
Newman
And
talks about it all the time, and I've
yeah.
heard so many, so many different variations of it
Yeah.
from several people.
And he's so helpful. The guy like showed me a studio like I might be interested in. I visited like because I'm trying to expand the
Newman,
studio. So yeah, so
yeah,
Newman had was pointing me the right direction.
yeah,
Hey,
he's
this guy's
very
got a good studio.
resourceful.
Hey,
He's
this
one of
guy's
my
did that.
sponsors. He's
Yeah.
done a lot. I've
Yep.
taken him to Florida. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's done a lot for me. He's brought me so
Mm-hmm.
many clients over the years,
Yep.
and he's sponsored so much for me over the years.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, he did really piss me off one day, and down at the beach, and I was like, Dan, you know what? I don't want to talk to you today. Everybody that I've ever met that's known you has.
I'm a
you,
timestamp this. This is the. Go
you
ahead.
pissed me off. You pissed me off. You've every one of those people off, and now finally after 3 years, you pissed me off, right? So he just went home, right? So the next day he calls me, and I'm like on the way to I'm going out to lunch, right? I'm starving. I haven't eaten in a day, I'm
Right.
going out to lunch, and he gets on the phone and he's like, "Hey man," and I was like, "Hey Newman, what's up?" And he says, "Hey, sorry about yesterday," and he was trying to be, he was trying to, he's like, it's just one of those things. And I was like, Dan, I already forgave you and stuff like that. 5 minutes into the phone call, I hated him twice as much as I did the day before, and I lost my appetite. I showed up at the restaurant and I wasn't hungry.
Well, the reason why he makes your blood boil is because his regret is not fake. It's real. So at the time when he's sorry, he's actually sorry, but then keeps doing the same thing over and over again. Like I saw in this play, there's a play called A Dreamer Examines His Pillow. If it wasn't invented already, he would have invented the New Year's resolution, and then been the first one to break it. So Daniel Newman, this is out of love, but this is and he the whole South Bay. It's not a secret. The whole South Bay knows what the heck we're talking about right now.
Yeah. I love Dan Newman. I would do just about anything for him. He's been a very loyal sponsor for me. He's brought me clients. We've
Right.
done trips together. I mean, the whole Florida thing was just a scream.
Isn't that great?
When
Yeah.
we did 3 teams: Ratledge and Rafu, Jeremy and Torrin, and Phil Burrow and Cole Fears.
Yeah.
And Newman,
Wow.
and it was
Just great characters,
oh
dude.
my God, we had the time. You
Phil
can't
Burrow,
you can't
great character.
you can't buy those moments.
Cole
That was just
Fears,
that was just one of the most fun times.
Cole and Baranek are doing afternoons
Yeah,
for
right.
juniors right
Right.
now, and
Right.
I told them if they're looking for another coach, I know a guy because I just finished my indoor my last year at LA Volleyball Club, my 3-year obligation.
Who's that?
Jason Olive, Los Angeles Volleyball Club.
Okay, I don't know him.
Jo was a former All-American at Hawaii.
Right.
And also a Versace model and Ralph Lauren model. So he was on all the billboards in New York the same time he was playing Final Four against Penn State. And he started this club. He had a vision of just integrity, intensity, and intelligence, like the 3 I's or whatever. It was a true Los Angeles volleyball club experience.
Yeah.
Where we had this trainer who was like a national champion for football. His name was Big Lou Jones, and I saw the warm-ups and I saw whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. This is awesome. I'm going to talk about your 4 C's, the winning formula.
Huh? Yeah, the winning formula.
And gotta let you talk, man. Let's talk about them 4 C's. Otherwise, I'm I got my audience yelling at me like, shut the F up and let this guy get a word in.
My 4 C's is my big winning recipe. You get out on the court and you know that your team has potential, but maybe they lack a few things, and they have the ability, and they show that they can do everything that you need them to do right. Mm-hmm. But they just don't do it consistently. They don't put the links together sometimes. So that's where the dam breaks. There's a couple of missing links, So my 4 C's, my recipe for winning are control, comfort, consistency, confidence. And it's a self-perpetuating loop, You get
it is a cyclical thing, right? Like a wheel.
You get that control that you need. You get those passes where you need to go. And you get your sets. You get your arms up early and you telegraph your hitter where that ball is going, and you square up and you move your feet and you square up, you get that control, you get comfortable on the court. And when you get comfortable, you get consistent, and you get that feeling, Jason, where you're just walking out onto the court and you're like, nobody's beating me today, right? And when you get that level of confidence, it usually works, it does wonders for you. Confidence is the pinnacle of the four C's. It's the pinnacles of competitive spirit. It's the pinnacle of aggressive nature. I mean, you look at Kobe Bryant or Wayne Gretzky. Kobe Bryant could miss 101 free throws in a row, or 101 three-pointers in a row. The next time he gets that ball, he is 200% confident that that ball is going in. Wayne Gretzky, same thing with his shots. He could miss 100 shots, and on the next time he gets the puck and he's got a net, he's 100% that one's going to be the one.
And that's the challenge, right? Like, comfortability, I think, comes from constant repetitions where you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it, right? And if you do it right in practice, that trains them for the game. Because there are so many people that hit really well in practice, or they can hit 100 free throws in practice, but when the game's on the line, and tensions are high and butt cheeks get tight, can they make it or not? Maybe there's this moment of hesitation that we failed him as coaches, where he's not trained for that, or they're just some people, personalities where they just have a hang up, Now, us as coaches, we don't concede to hang ups. We always think we fail. We always think that there's something, and to me, good coaches, good coaches believe they always put it on them. We've accepted that. If they win, it's the players. If they lose, it's the coaches. We come into that because it allows us to work. And it's not true. I'm not saying it's true. There's just some people you're like, yo, this ain't on me. That dude's a nut. But as long as you come in with that mentality, you have room to prove yourself, or them to prove you wrong, or for you to prove yourself wrong. And you kept that thought about exploring good reps in practice, how it translates to good reps in the game for the comfortability part of those four C's.
There's two aspects that often seem synonymous, but they're not. They're completely 180 degrees apart. One of them is ownership.
Right.
The other one is entitlement. You think that just because you're going to play with this great player that you're going to win this tournament, because you're feeling entitled, okay? You thinking that, hey, look, there's no way we're not winning. I'm playing with a great player. He's good. I'm feeling that sense of entitlement, as opposed to ownership. Hey, nobody's beating me. I've drilled out. I've burned down my bad habits. I'm consistent. I'm confident in my fundamentals. I've put my hours in over at Sand Dune Park, running those laterals and those jumping drills up that hill and down that hill and sideways on that hill. I deserve to be here. I own this.
I like that.
That's ownership. Entitlement is, hey, look, I play with my friends every day. I'm good. I'm hot stuff, as opposed to hot something else.
Cold farts.
Cold farts. I deserve to be here. I'm not going to lose because I play every day and I'm good. I'm in my mind, I'm great.
Right.
But that's more of an entitlement. I know all the good players. I know all this, right? I am entitled to this, as opposed to, hey, look, have you really done your time? Do you really think that you can identify your weaknesses and work on those weaknesses and build them strong, and take your strengths and make them even stronger?
Right.
That's ownership, right? So entitlement and ownership. Now, the second aspect is, and I've had this discussion many times with Tim Hovland.
I just rolled my eyes, but go ahead.
In today's game, I find that, let me take a step back. In Hollywood, okay, in Hollywood,
mm-hmm.
You've got presences and actors. A presence, Tom Hanks, Jack Nicholson, Clark Gable, John Wayne.
Right.
It didn't matter if they knew their lines or didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they said was right. and
Right.
everybody else played around
They
that.
ate it up.
acted
They ate it
around
up.
that.
Yeah.
And then you have actors, guys that are trying to be presences, but probably will never be there. Okay?
Gary Oldman.
In sports, you have competitors like Karch Kiraly, like Mike Dodd in his day, right?
Yeah.
And then you have exhibitionists. And I think in today's sports, beach volleyball, there's far too many exhibitionists, not enough competitors. There
Wow.
was a very few people that were both.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I would say that Tim Hovland was both. And I told him that, and he looked at me kind of funny. And I looked at him. He says, "Tim," I looked at him and I said, "Tim, that's a really great compliment, you know." And he's like, "I really, really appreciate that." And he goes, "I really believe that. I was competitive, but yet I gave the crowd what they wanted."
Right.
Karch Kiraly, not. Karch Kiraly was pure competitor.
right.
You
So was
look at
Phil.
Jose
Phil
Leo-
was Phil an
Phil
exhibitionist?
Phil is not an exhibitionist.
No.
He is the Karch Kiraly, like we alluded to earlier.
Right.
He is the pinnacle of the competitive nature.
Yeah.
He could be good at whatever
I'll go
he did.
Anders Mull on that one too.
He would be good at whatever he chose to do.
Right.
Another guy that was both was
I mean, let's not get carried away.
Jose Loyola.
Okay.
Jose was a competitor, but he was also a great exhibitionist. Casey Patterson, another guy, good exhibitionist, but a fierce competitor. You know, too many people out there are exhibitionists. The ratio of exhibitionists to competitors in today's game is far less
Right.
than it was back in the 80s and the 90s when we were oohed and awed by the pros.
I'll give you an example. First time I saw Tim Hovland wasn't even on the beach. There was a sport called Team Cup Volleyball. Now, this is in the early 90s where like sponsors, Coca-Cola, Paul Mitchell got together and decided the beach class should play indoor sixes in this 4-team round robin thing. So it was Coca-Cola, Paul Mitchell, Team Toyota was all the USC guys, most of them, if not. And this is Rockstar era, right? Alan Knight was still playing, right? Tim Hovland was playing. Adam Johnson was playing. Fenoyd, Stetson. So it was a mixture of guys who were playing indoors, Divert League, right? Buck. But Tim Hovland played
Timmons,
with
too.
Timmons, actually. And Dusty Dvorak was setting. That was Team Toyota.
Dvorak, yes.
And the one guy I followed everywhere he went from 88 all the way up to that was Steve Timmons. So I watched it because Steve Timmons played. But the guy who stole the show, that was just competitive and hairy and no, he netted it, I blocked him.
Gritty,
you know,
just gritty.
was Tim Hovland. And what just was, so, talk about someone who was great for the sport. Because like you said, he wasn't the rare combination of an exhibitionist and a competitor, right? And I'm glad you brought him up because so there's some things that guy does that rubs me the wrong way and I'll roll my eyes, but I'm not. I don't lack objectiveness. That dude was an exhibitionist and that dude was a competitor. AJ too. Adam Johnson too. Huge competitor. He's in Texas right now coaching club or whatever. Getting back to what you said about being entitled versus what was the other? Being entitled.
Ownership.
Right, ownership. Coach Carter in this movie once said, just because you deserve it doesn't mean they're going to give it to you, right? Now, people think that implies that he's entitled, but that also implies that the people who are trying to claim ownership. But the reason why they claim ownership are the more successful is because they expect that. They see that coming. That this other team probably wants it too, and they ain't going to give up the goods. So, and that's why I loved your comparison and contrast with ownership versus entitlement. And it's so meaningful to the players and I guess how people choose they want to, how coaches are supposed to recognize. Coaches have to be able to diagnose and recognize, and maybe that takes years. And there's some people that get that
There's
right away.
so few things, Jason, that are important,
Right.
and I think that, I used to tell my engineers, it's like, hey, look, the two things we need to get the right answer on this is perspective and clarity. That's it, So I try to break everything down, every situation, into something binary. Instead of giving them a whole lot of words and 5 paragraphs, just like Pompilio did. That's it. Let's just break it down and keep it simple. This is what you're not doing. This is what you need to do. This is what you're letting yourself succumb to, right? And most of the time, it comes down to footwork. You're just not moving your feet, right? Or you're just your body position is showing me that you're tired. It's showing your opponents that you're tired. Your body attitude is showing you're tired. I can see it, right? It's usually something that can be explained in a binary thing. If you start going off about a whole lot of stuff, you're going to lose your players in a key moment when they really need just a simple direction.
Right.
And I want to be in your head on the court. I don't even want to have to be there. I want to say, you start messing up. I want to be in your head and you're thinking, yes, Gene, I'm not getting under the ball on my hit. I'm broad jumping into the ball. When you get tired, you do that, When you get tired, you drop that elbow just a little bit, It's about what would Gene be screaming at me right now on top of that box,
Well, when you're tired, that's or at least at the high level.
Or lazy.
No, when you're tired, you tend to fall back on something that you believe works, right? So if you train your body to broad jump and do all these things or whatever, and that's what you identify with when you're tired, that you think that works. Either it does work because you're properly coached and through process and preparation, that's the only thing you recognize through repetition and you'll succeed, or or the negative talk will creep up in your head where you're looking for excuses, you're looking for a touch block, on hits that are out of this or that. Like, for example, on the junior scene, you'll see this a lot. You'll see games 23 up and like an outside hitter just hit middle of the court, right? Because in practice, he's taking so many hits on an open net with no block and no dig, just X amount of minutes, just trying to get his directional integrity. But he chooses to use that time to just hit straight down and feel good about himself and get a bunch of reps. So when a game happens, 4 bad things are going to happen when you hit middle of the court. Indoor education for our beach guys. 1, it's probably going to hit the top of the tee. 2, it's probably going to get blocked by the middle blocker. 3, if it gets past them, it's probably going to get dug by the person playing position 6, that's center back. 4, it's probably going to go long, and you're going to be begging for a touch. And everybody, the audience listening right now, as a coach and even as a player, all 4 of those things where's my camera? All 4 of those things have happened to you. Why? Because when tensions get high, and again, butt cheeks get tight, you tend to fall back. Or when you're tired, well, like we just said, you tend to fall back on what you remember, and what you remember.
Or less confident.
Right. Less confidence or fake confidence, or something where they're like, this is what I know and this is what I'm going to do because I think it's going to work, even though it didn't work the time before that and the time before that and the time before that. What could possibly go wrong? I'm not saying they're not going to get lucky. I'm not saying they're not going to hit off the block, where 1 or 2 hits builds that confidence, or they hit the ball out, but the ref calls a blocker into the net, right? Maybe get lucky, get good. All of those things are variables as well. But the 4 major things, the audience knows what I'm talking about. And there are coaches out there and players out there like, yep. Now, here's the funny thing, what you said about entitlement versus ownership. I remember coaching a women's team, and I had them bring it in. And so I said, so if you listen to everything I say, that means you're going to win, right? They're like, right. I said, no, wrong. No. I'll pat myself on the back. I can make every game 22 up. Those last 3 points, y'all got to win. Any decent coach, right, can diagnose, make adjustments, and we'll just say the beach game. We can make any game 17-18. Any good coach can make any game with manageable, right. A 17-18. And that's who gets a 19, 20, and 21? That's your training, dude.
That's what you're seeing now on most of the venues and like the AVP. You're watching, not too often, but it does happen, where a qualifier team gets in the main draw and they lose for a 5th place or a 3rd place by 2 points in the 3rd. There's not that much margin for error anymore. And that's your championship. And that's your championship. And wouldn't it, you're going to look back and we're going to have that AAR, that after action review. And we're going to say, where did you lose this match? Why did you let this thing go 3? Or yes, you clawed back and you got to the 3rd set and you had it, but then you got overconfident, or you got a little lazy, or they broke your confidence. I'm on the other side, the coach on the other side. When you're coaching a team, you have to coach both sides. It's not good enough to just go out there, Jason, and say, okay, this is what we need to do. You have to go out there and you say, okay, this is where the deficiency is. They know it. This is what you can expect. If so-and-so just shanked 3 passes, we're taking this time out, where do you think the next ball is going to be served to? You know, where you have to coach both sides, right? Coaching both sides is key.
Yeah. Well, you know, want to hear something weird? Do you know what made me a better coach? I've been coaching 26 years, and there's a correlation of when I chose to go back to school and finish my degree in theater performance, right? And acting. I was in the BFA program in Marymount, Manhattan. And what happened was...
The other Manhattan.
Yeah, sorry. No, yeah. There's Manhattan Beach and there's Manhattan. And Manhattan Beach know better. When I say Manhattan, they know better. Come on. It's the greatest city in the world. Here's what happened. I noticed that as an actor, the best way to, I was mixing my expectations with my goals. So acting 1, let's just say year 1, there's something we call GOTE. Goal, obstacle, tactics, expectation. What's my goal? To get her to love me again. What's the obstacle? She's got a man. What are my tactics? She always an asshole, right? What are my expectations? You know what I'm saying? We live happily ever after. So living happily ever after and getting her to love me sounds like both sound like the goal, but they're not. Now translating that to volleyball, the 16-year-old, right? I only have limited practices with him, so I'm like, make sure you check all the boxes. So when you're passing, 1, do you have court vision right after your pass? Is your pass up and down, which is north-south, up and down instead of shooting? Don't really want to shoot that much, up and down. 2nd, can your setter use his hands, right? 3, is the pass optionable, like is it an option pass without forcing the option? Those are what I call checking the 3 boxes. And at the end of practice, I said, those are your expectations. So if you're in practice and you're playing that as your goal, then you're not going to play good volleyball. Your goal is to hold your platform. Come in with a volleyball focus that leads you to those expectations. So example, the goal would be hold. Because holding creates that little hard wall, versus padded wall effect where the ball stays in the air and waits for the setter to get there, right? Or your goal might be straight and simple. Am I curving my pass at the end? Am I doing this? Because that's what I did in high school, and then volleyball comes so easy. I could just hot dog it, right? Am I making one move to the ball, right? My coach wants me to angle pass, one move to the ball. Am I going out of my way to midline it? And midlining, as we both know, requires 2 moves. You can't do a midline pass without 2 moves, right? So your goal can't be one move to the ball if you're midlining. So that's the goal, and the expectation is checking those 3 boxes. Now, as a coach or as a former theater performer, we have to recognize the distinction between what's an expectation and what's a goal. Because they sound dangerously like the same, and they're not.
You ask whether you're in business, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're on the volleyball court coaching people.
Right.
What do you think you need? And what do you really need? What is it that you want? What do you really want? Now, whenever I got hit with an investigation, I always asked 2 questions of my VP.
Tell me, yeah.
2 questions is, how big of an opportunity is this? That's number 1. And number 2, how far ahead of it do I have to get?
Amen. Yep.
I don't want to fix this problem. Only, 5 years from now, that same satellite has another problem. That, we found out it was, no. How far ahead do I have to get to perfection?
Right.
Too many people focus on the wrong things in this sport. All they want to do is hit, or set. They don't realize the the expertise and the challenge in becoming a good passer and a good shot maker. So their expectations, that expectations aspect of your GOAT, right, is sometimes not what they want it to be.
It's because they think it's their goal. Do you understand? And again, to keep it in simpler forms for the audience, I remember Hugh McCutcheon at the 2008 team. He's like, "Don't try to be good, just be good." Or don't be out there trying to play, just play. Right? Because trying to play might be making a statement. Making a statement is based on what everybody else thinks, as opposed to just playing.
Yeah.
Going back to theater, and please keep that thought, because I think this is entertaining as well as funny. I remember Lauren Bacall, former, she was a patient at my office, and I got to talk to her, and she's been my inspiration to go back to school, because she was the one that was like, you should do that. I did a term paper actually and used her as my source, a 5-question interview. So I got an A++ on that paper. But the broader point here is she had this performance. She had like 100 shows to do this performance. And there's a way that she asked for the sugar. Like the first 5 performances, I was making the audience laugh, right? So when she tried to play that, the next 90 performances, no one laughed, right? And then finally the last 5 performances, topping the 100, right? Everyone started laughing again, right? And then when I asked her, what did she do? She said, I asked for the sugar and not the laugh. And that's the challenge. Remember, Bill Belichick, I'll go to football. Don't be out there trying to do something better than you usually are. Just do your job. Just do your job. And do your job means like so many other things that other coaches, but I know what he meant. You know, what you have is enough to win. And the way that you approach it is enough to win. Don't be out there trying to do something to fulfill your expectations when your goal pursuant to your expectations is enough.
That goes back to confidence in your ability and confidence in your personal style. Don't try to be anybody. Everybody else is taken. You have to be yourself. You know,
like Forrest Gump. Seats taken.
Yeah. No. He's like
taken.
It's
you
like,
can't sit here.
Like
Sorry,
Lieutenant Dan asked him. He goes, "Forrest, do you know what you're going to be when you grow up?" And Forrest looks at him, Lieutenant Dan. He goes, "I'm going to be me."
Oh my! Isn't he something? Oh my goodness! Did you ever find Jesus? I didn't know I was supposed to be looking
for him.
I want to do a 1-minute lightning round so I can get to make sure we cover our bases. So Gene, I'm gonna start a 1-minute clock, and it's gonna allow me to make sure we covered all this important subject matter.
We talked about a lot of those already.
We did.
Yeah.
Well, that's the artist in me. I'm scrolling at the same time. And we're introducing. I mean, we're pulling the curtain out from our performance here, people. But this was us checking our boxes, which wasn't our goal. It was the net result / expectation.
It's
wow.
just
Thanks for proving my point for me, you genius.
When we get together, when good volleyball minds get together, the subjects become very apparent. And I think that your audience can atone to that.
All right. So I got a 60-second clock right there. You can see it on our screen, right?
Okay.
I want you to give me 3 venues that you really enjoyed being, whether it's for work or whether it was just nostalgic or just fun or the food was there. So 60 seconds, 3 favorite venues.
For volleyball?
For volleyball.
One of them had to be Florida. Florida was just amazing. The opens that we did down in Florida at Fort Lauderdale 2 Februaries ago. The AVP next, Diogo, his venue down there. That was one of them. Brazil has to be up there, Jason. Brazil is just it's been such an eye-opener, and the people and the discipline and the focus and just where these people actually come from to play and how much desire and discipline they have to, again, because their motivation is different. I love Hermosa Beach. I love playing at 16th Street. The South Bay 16th Street has produced more elite athletes in the volleyball world. It's great to be around them. It's a great community. Most of the time, it is something to behold. And that's kind of the way I feel about that.
Timing's everything. I like that. The clock went up and you delivered in the timely fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do a minute because I've done that all the time, but I'll just go really quick through my list. New York City, of course. You know, I'm the new Sinatra, and if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. Yeah, they love me everywhere. Of course, I like Hermosa Beach, even though Manhattan Beach is a sister, whatever. There's something more intimate. It's the same like nostalgia as Manhattan Beach, except more intimacy, where like everyone knows each other. So I like Hermosa Beach. And New Orleans. I was in New Orleans. I was calling Center Court 3 years ago, and I was our guide. I was Evan Corey, right? And Logan Weber defeating Rafa Rodriguez and Piotr Marciniak. Night lights. Humid day equals nice warm night where you're out in the outdoor.
I mean, the finals wasn't that good.
No,
because
what his name had a bad wheel.
Piotr had a bad. Came up limp.
Yeah, but when you're in this environment where it's humid during the day, you know it's going to be a cool night. You know it's not something where you're going to be freezing at night. It's not desert weather. Yeah. So it's warm. It's like party weather. And of course the night and the sun sets and the night lights came out and you got the home crowd, you know, the Kenner favorite. His family's there. His you know, everybody's there, and it was like the perfect storm. For the characters in this play. It was the perfect setting for this play. It was the perfect crowd, the venue for this play. Yeah. And as a guy who loves theater performance, I felt like it was volleyball. It was the recreation of conflict put in front of an audience as if it was happening then and there, because it was. Maybe I should have used a minute. I needed a cutoff. Dude, I think that last one was like 40 seconds and the first two were like 10. So we're going to explore a little bit about transition volleyball as a coach, and as a lot of people and our peers listen to this, but a lot of people aspire to be better coaches. Maybe you can give us 2 or 3 things to remember, not necessarily for the dig, but after you get the dig. What's 1 or 2 things you'd like to just help coaches and players remember after the ball's up? They get right. They're getting a good play. They're facing They're facing the hitter. The ball comes up. Go.
If you get a good pass off, a good high pass, because a lot of times you're on a transition dig, your digger is down.
Right.
Let's just say he's down or he's stunned, or the ball doesn't come up nearly as high, like on a hard hit. Your blocker pulls. He's got his hands up. He'll push the ball more than he'll get it up in the air. So he'll push it towards the net, or he'll push it towards his partner. Transition plays, transition digs are where you win the game. You don't win the game by siding out. Well, to a certain degree you do. You have to side out. Mm-hmm. But you can see teams side out against each other all day long. You have to, you really win games on transition balls. And to me, the second most important ball is a transition set.
Right.
That set has to be high enough, and it has to have good location, and that's why in our drills, even in side-out balls, I have the players get their arms up and their shoulders up, and you do not move those hands or shoulders. What does move is your feet. If that ball moves a little bit, you don't move your hands, you don't move your shoulders, you move your feet. You get under that ball and you telegraph that set. And in transition balls, if that ball goes over the net a second time after you dig, then you're not going to get that point. You have to put that first transition ball down.
I like that.
And it's totally predicated on the ability for your setter, which oftentimes is your blocker. He has to telegraph where that ball is going so that your hitter can get the proper spacing and visibility and that comfort so that he can go up and make a good play.
Right. And I'd also like to add to that by saying, like, after you get that first hit, in practice.
That first touch.
First touch.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Touch, dig, touch. I like touch. That's it.
Yeah.
After first touch, in practice, through process and preparation, allow yourself to feel like an idiot. Take chances. Compete set, right? Do as many lemons to lemonade drills as you can. Lemons to lemonade is when I as a coach, I take a ball and I slap it. When the blocker turns around, I represent first hit and I just throw it anywhere.
Right.
And,
Second
it's their job to take that ball,
coach's ball,
and compete set, right? If it goes over the net, fine, right? If it's too tight, fine. But the two most important things I want them to remember is you're not going to get better at something like that by not doing it. And the second thing is anything less than a competitive set is only going to be a free ball, and they're going to be set up, and that's, you want to talk about getting tired and wearing yourself out. I mean, show me a team that has a lot of heart. I'll show you a team that I could beat up for an hour if they can't transition set. So and that also trains you as an athlete, as an elite athlete, when a real game happens, and when you're compete setting, one, you have to remember to give them a call, because I notice in a lot of professional games, you would think the bad set they're bringing back, you'd hear a call 90% of the time. It's actually, I did the numbers. It's significantly less than the in-system calls. And it's so backwards at this level. It's ridiculous. And the second thing is, don't stay on the ground if you're diving for a ball to bring back. Get your behind up and cover. So if you're going to compete set, please make sure you're at the scene of the crime to cover, right? Me, I'm 54 years old. So if I'm bringing a ball back, I'm still on the ground. We get it.
You're scoop digging.
You're
pulling it off.
No, but I'm 54. If I'm still on the ground, we get it. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about, some guy who doesn't play anymore, right? I'm talking about important points, because you just mentioned earlier, like, championships aren't decided by blowouts. They're decided by these little 2-point games that, you look at the end of your season, right? Let's say you got like a 15-1 record. I'll bet you there were at least 10 sets that you were 9-1, and those sets decided by 2, right? Otherwise that record's different.
When did you lose that game, Jason?
Yeah.
When did you lose that match? You lost that match when you had an easy dig. You got a great set, and you decided to bang the crap out of the ball when one of the defenders was down and the blocker was out of position. You just had a touch. Those are things, just a simple ball. What would Phil do,
Phil ball was one of our conversations that we just ting, checking the boxes.
He just, I think that one of the him and Troy played together, and one of the things that I heard was that there was some difficulty there. Maybe it was somebody else. Maybe it wasn't Troy. It was somebody else, because Troy played with him early that season. He played with him. He played with him early. He's just not getting a high enough set, and that to me is one of the great differences between the lower level tiered pros and the higher level. You have to be able to hit a high set. A high set gives you the opportunity to look around, to look at the defense, stare them down. It gives you the ability to relax instead of just running and jumping to hit a ball, And people's approach, that slow, medium to fast,
Good, better, best, yeah.
Good, better, best. Too many people, they just have never learned to hit a high set, so they tend to take their first step is way faster than it should be, and they end up slowing down into their close, Right. And that hurts them.
We call it topping because their climatic series is interrupted. When, like you said, the momentum, that good, better, best is not.
Or they land up taking an S-turn on their approach.
Yeah, jeez.
I mean, just, follow your pass. If your pass is inside, take that lateral step. You know who does that? Taylor Crabb does that. Trevor Crabb does that. Both Crabb brothers. They take that first lateral step. You know who does that really good is Zana Munoz.
Yeah.
And
you're talking domestically.
Okay. Yes, and Gina Urango also. Those two girls.
Christian Sorum is.
Those two girls do everything that I try to coach. They are just so good to watch, and you get a real appreciation for them if you slow that film down and watch them take that first inside lateral, right? make that little approach, that slow, medium to fast burst, because they have good spacing techniques.
Right.
And their runway is nice and straight, you know?
Yep.
Planes don't take off on S-turns. Planes like to take off and land on straight runways. So should you if you want to be a competitor in this sport.
Yeah, well said. That's a mic drop for that one. But I would like to continue on, because we're going to finish by talking about the Olympics, who has the best shot at winning, this and that. But I'd like to start with that segue to the Olympics by saying that I'm very, very happy that this became an NCAA sport, because when women's beach became an NCAA sport, women were committed to this thing 10 months out of their 12 years. The facilities are there because you're already paying for tuition anyway, so the facilities are free. You got a decent coaching's free. Like, for me, my favorite three coaches on this side of the country are John Mayer, Jeff Alzina, and Todd. Yeah. But I added Dane to that because Dane is a different kind of coach, where he's in a school where if you don't win the whole thing, it's a failed season. So I have to respect that it takes a certain kind of person to be like, okay, I accept that. You know what I'm saying? And he has, right? So Dane and Todd can be, depending on the day, it could be 3 and 3A. But I go with John Mayer first. I'm not biased because I work with him. I go with Jeff Alzina because, very much like you and Phil Jackson, right, he's really good at presenting you your options and just making sense, right? Where he doesn't have to motivate you. Like the percentage question I asked, what percentage if you don't go at all? That motivates you to go. That's he eliminates him having to say move your behind, right? He just gave you your option, and you are now putting pressure on yourself without him having to put that pressure on you. And that's the gift that Jeff has that you have that I've learned. Yeah.
Matches can be very, very
Midwest.
long.
I could go like 10 coaches, but West Coast, I go those three.
Matches can be very long if they're competitive. And I'll never forget Karch. I had a conversation with Karch many years ago. And, he was a big fan of the jump floaty. He had that little jump floaty that he served out of the middle of the court. And he said, Gene, if I do that because it got to the point where he started playing later in his years and still being super competitive. I'm telling you,
only finishing second, right? Excuse the heck out of me, right?
If he was going to be in a main draw in one of these three tournaments,
he was in the finals.
I would not miss a moment of his play.
Yeah,
but he was like, You almost have to look cumulatively at the number of steps you take on the beach in a day.
100%.
Playing. You get tired, and if your approach has an S turn in it, my setter is going to hear about it. It's the number of steps, the number of quick responses, and he said, he could still do everything when he retired. But he lost a half a step on his lateral.
Right. Yeah.
That was it for him.
Yep. He also went back to lefty approach when he did the beach. I mean, and indoor, he was what we call interchangeable. He would, wherever his last two steps would take him is where it would take him. So if you watch video, you're like, oh my God, he's a goofy foot. And then the next play, you're like, no, it's traditional. Okay, cool. I was seeing things. And you're like, wait, he just did it again. And in 88, it was pretty much all traditional. But but I'm glad you said that about Karch, because anytime you get a chance to watch him, you knew you were witnessing something special. And you only have this finite amount of time to play the sport. So I'm like, anytime, it's very much like with me with Victor Borge, who was like one of my favorite pianists. I'm like, I got to go to Carnegie Hall and see this guy before he stops doing this. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned Muno, because Muno was what I would call part of the 2019 movement. So 2019 was where a lot of girls started the NCAA or finishing the NCAA. First it was Hughes and Chang, right, who pioneered it, right?
Right.
But then in 2019, Hermosa Beach, you had Chrissy Jones and Muno, right? As the 43rd seed in the qualifier, make it to the semifinals. You had Kraft and Maple, who were 15 and 17 years old, making it to the quarterfinals. You had the Norris twins. They're 18. They didn't even go to USC yet. They made it to the main draw from the qualifier. So now you have this group of girls, very much like the movie 300, when they pushed the elephants off the cliff. like heave.
I just saw that movie the other night for the first
So
time.
you know what I'm talking about. So for the audience, picture 300. Like there's no room for the Spartans and the elephants. The elephants gotta go. So the girls who were not minding their P's and Q's, their predecessors, were pushed off the cliff. They were gone because there was no more room. There's a new bunch of girls coming through. It's 2019. Here we come. And the girls who did mind their P's and Q's, like Betsy Flint, who won that tournament, she saw it coming a mile away, and she's like, "Okay, I'm rolling with these girls. I'm ready. They ain't beating me yet. You know, I gotta. You know, you're gonna have to earn that lunch, right?" And then, so that was a boom period. And then the next boom period came in 2022. Tina Gordina graduated, right? She played for Latvia. TKN, we can go an extra hour. We ain't got the time because I'm actually a fan. I'm an admit, because I'm a purist. I don't like to admit I'm a fan. No, I'm a fan, right? 36 and 0 in the NCAA. Kraft, right? 4 years under Dane. She, but even though she was already the best player coming in, you know, of 10 years out of the month, you know, iron sharpens iron, you're going to come out of that better. So girls on national teams that played for TCU who are playing for their country. So these two boom periods have made American volleyball, not necessarily international volleyball, because all of those international players I mentioned were the best players on their team coming in as a freshman. So I ain't just going to give the coach the rub. You know, you jumped in front of that parade. But it put the American girls on the map. Like if you look at the points, we had 4 teams in the one at 18, but like in the top 16, we had 4 teams, and that used to be a Brazil problem, right? Everybody's like, "Oh my God, I wish there wasn't only 2 per country," and I'm like, now you know how Brazil feels every Olympics, like including this one, right? That you're only allowed 2 women's teams. There were like 5 teams that were worthy.
Well,
and I'm glad
the Americans had 3.
But I'm glad we had that problem.
Yeah.
Right? It was Scholes and Flint who were kind of there at the end, right? And then
Oh my God,
Haley playing with anyone who will play with her, she was winning with them, right? So, you know, and Alex and April, if they didn't decide to go have a bunch of babies, they might have been one of those teams. So aren't we proud of our women? I mean, the men, we got some work to do, and maybe that's a whole nother episode, but Gene, proud of our women, man. You know, they were the number 2 and number 3 seed in the world coming in. Or 2 and 4. I don't know where the Canadians were in Brazil. And I acknowledge the road to the gold is through Duda and Anna Patricia. That's historically accurate. The path to the goal, you got to get through them. So,
I think the women are far more disciplined and far more sound fundamentally.
And more professional than the guys are.
And more professional. They're more competitive. There's a bigger competitive spirit than the men. And
Definitely.
I really feel that. And, you know, after we've had our discussions today about, you know, exhibitionists and competitors and, you know, showing up. I mean, when I'm down in Brazil, I spend a lot of time there in, you know, like December, January, and into February because it's summer down there and it's hot. And, you know, you get teams like Denmark, Canada, even the Philippines, right? They'll come and they'll spend, you know, 10 days to 2 weeks there, and they'll train every day. And they'll train, we'll start at like 7, and we'll train till like 9:30. They're out there at 6:15 doing insane calisthenics, insane warm-ups to be ready to go at 7. They don't just show up at 7 and then, you know, kind of roll in with their lattes and just rolled out of bed. And those guys, they're there and they're ready. They're ready to go, and they work hard. They work really hard. And when they show up with 4 and 5 coaches. There'll be like maybe 3 or 4 teams, right? That 3 or 4 pairs that they show up with each country. But they show up with 4 or 5 no kidding coaches. These are real serious coaches.
Yeah.
Here,
which is why they're early, because they know that coach ain't having it.
Right. And they compete. They compete with each other to play with each other. You know, it's not like they just show up, hey, yeah, I got a coach. We got a coach now, you know, and our coach is so-and-so, you know. And they show up with 4 or 5 no-kidding coaches, serious coaches, ex-Olympians,
right.
You know, and they're out there drilling them and fundamentals. And that goes back to what we talked about before. these guys show up and they're not the prettiest, they're not the most athletic, they're not the smoothest. You watch them pepper and you're like, God, these guys look really fresh, and yet, but they're fundamentally sound, and they just go out and they murder you. Their fundamentals just murder you,
Yeah, and I wanted to finish with the exhibitionist part because we're going to get back to coaching. We're going to finish with coaching. Well, we're going to pick some Olympic winners too. This is really cool. NCAA men's beach doesn't exist, right? NCAA indoor only offers 4.5 scholarships. Every single college has a women's indoor team, and now a lot of them have beach teams, right? Mm-hmm. But when you go to the draws, like the Gold Series and the qualifiers, you'll only see like 40 teams for women, or maybe 35, and you'll see like close to 80, or as many spots as they can for men. And the question of why, because the women are not exhibitionists. The women are so professional. They're like, look, they're using me for volleyball. I'm using them to pay for my scholarship. And when I graduate, I'll make a decision if I want to do this for real. And the ones that are in the qualifier, those 35 teams, pretty much 30 out of those 35, or maybe 25 out of those 35, believe they're going to be in the main draw. Right. Because they're what was the opposite of exhibitionists? They were
competitors.
They were owners. They were owners.
Ownerships,
right?
Yeah.
Where if, let's say, there were 80 teams in the qualifier for whatever, like how many of those guys actually believe they're going to
win a match?
8 spots, and there's 8 spots, so you don't have to finish first. You don't have to blast all 80 of them. You just have to be in the bracket to get one of the 8 spots. They don't believe. You only see the believers in the playing game. And maybe one team that played over their head is like, wow, right bracketology. I'm glad I wasn't in that bracket with Jeff Samuels and David Lee and Sean Cook or whatever. I'm in the beer bracket. I'm gonna get it. But that supports your argument. These girls are not exhibition.
Entitlement also. I play every day. I play with good players. I can win. I can make it to the.
It's exhausting.
And they lose in the first round. They're out in the first hour.
It's exhausting. And for those of you listening to this, save that gladiators in the arena thing for actually people that are gladiators, okay? If you lose in a real arena, you don't get to go home and drink a beer, so stop it. Right? The only people that get to talk about that is if you're in a combat sport. Because 27% of MMA people actually think at some point in the match they're going to die in a survey. So call them gladiators, all right? But I get the metaphor, but stop overusing it. But what you just said, the reason why there's less teams is because they're not exhibitionists. If they don't believe they're going to qualify, they have this finite amount of time. Maybe they'll go to a tournament that they know they can win, or a tournament where they can get better. And the reason why women's wasn't as entertaining as the men is because in order for us to notice the women, if you're not an exhibitionist, you have to win. Right? You have to win where you let your play do the talking. Yeah. Like Nuss is not an exhibitionist, but she's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. That woman, even people who are attracted just to personalities, you gotta love Kristen Nuss because her ownership allowed her to be a little bit a quasi-exhibitionist. There are a handful of players, and I'm going to roll them off. Let's go toe to toe.
She is.
What other defender, men or women, right? That when they get a dig, you're at the edge of your seat because you know you're going to witness something gnarly on transition. How about Taylor Crabb too?
Taylor Crabb.
Every time Taylor gets a dig,
every time he gets
you're at the edge of your seat because you're like,
every time he gets a touch.
Oh, yes! Right?
Yes.
Ahmed Tijan. When that dude gets a dig, I know he ain't shooting. I know he's going to try to create a crater or a hole somewhere. So Lupo. Daniel Lupo, that's another guy. When he gets a dig, I feel like I'm going to see something gnarly, right? And none of those players we would categorize as exhibitionists, except Lupo.
Kristen Nuss has probably the fastest first lateral step that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And if you slow that film down and you see what her eyes are doing and you see what her body is doing, she is just the master of the lateral step.
Yeah.
That's her bread and butter.
That's her,
And she
but that's her
knows it.
physical.
And she knows it, and she has built her game. In my mind,
Mm-hmm.
she has built her game around that strength.
And on the domestic scene, and on the women's scene, there's only one or two actual killers. Like, I don't mean aggressive players. I don't mean transition queens, people that make it look seamless or whatever. I'm talking about the girl that has this face like, if you serve me, you're going to rue the day you did. I'm going to F you up, and you are going to be sorry that you ever served the ball towards me. And I got Betsy Flint, who used to, who's not, I don't know where she is now, but she was that dog. Yeah. And the other one's Kristen Nuss. Those are the on the domestic scene. Yeah. The Brazil, you almost feel like they all are. Rebecca used to, for a long time. Rebecca was like that, right? So
back in the 80s and the early 80s, guys, I used to play with Matt Ipley. That was I played with him back in the 90s, early 90s. Okay. When I started playing at 16th Street. And he and his brother Mark, the two big dudes, the couple of the first big dudes on the beach, and they became quite proficient with jump serving, and they just thought that nobody could handle. And every single time they played St. John Smith, you could serve that guy with your toughest, your best, time after time. You could hit him with a cannon.
Right.
That guy passed every single ball just perfect.
Yeah, and he as far as like the example of for footwork, but
he built his game around his ability to pass and dig. Everything else was just gravy. His bread and butter was passing and digging.
All right, who wins the women
in the Olympics?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll put it to you. Who wins?
I think Kelly and Sarah have a really good shot.
Yeah, momentum-wise, and where styles make matchups, that's very hard to argue with. That's a very good pick, Gene.
I remember, I forget which tournament it was. I think it was.
They won the Worlds, right?
It was 2 years ago, because I coach with them every morning. They're right next to me, and I talk to Jordan, and they lost in the finals. I think it was Hermosa. 2 years ago, and I went up to Kelly and I was like, yeah, you guys put on a really good show. That's the one where I think they were up in the third and they lost. They were up by 2 and they lost. It was really, really tight.
Right.
And they had match point a couple times and they lost, and it went back and forth. It was a real battle. I think it was against their old partner.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me,
please. I remember going to her, and and she was just beside herself, because this was Monday morning. This was the day after, right? Right. And I remember going to Jordan, and I was like, Jordan, you have this. You don't realize how important this moment is. You have to learn to take that loss and turn it into something positive, and turn it into something strong. And instead of, and that feeling that you get when you wake up Monday morning and realize that you had it and you lost it, why did that happen? And where in that match did you lose it? And I used to tell that to Eric when I was coaching Eric. I was like, hey, look, you're in the finals of a triple A. It's when he was young, right? And I was like, you do not, going into this final match, going into the finals here, you do not want to wake up Monday morning knowing that you got over anxious, that you got overconfident, that your testosterone was just a little too high, and you lost this match by 2 points. And you had it. You had it easily, and you just let it get away from you. You do not want to wake up Monday morning feeling that way. Everybody's like, oh, well, we came in 10th, so we did. I'll tell you the team that did was the team that came in second. They are the biggest loser, not the team that came in
third,
9th or 13th or 17th.
I'd rather finish third. At least I already know.
The team that comes in second,
thank the Lord.
that is the hardest. That's the hardest gut check to go through.
Gene,
those are the ones that are going to keep you awake, that are going to wake you up 10 years from now. You're going to relive that, and it's going to bother you.
I am proud to say that as a player or a coach, if I was in the finals, I was always first. A second happened so rarely. I remember the 5 times as like the 5 times, and it's this. I remember I was at a bar saying second place sucks, and like everyone's like, hey, they had no idea what I was talking about. Hey, I'll drink to that, and I'm second place sucks, you know. So yeah, I'm with you on that. My winner. Because I know there's only one match a day, it's not a tournament,
Right?
And
right.
that's a variable that also comes into play. So for me, it's not about who's in the funk. How many points do they lose before they get out of the funk? I got to go to Brazil. I got to go. Who do I want to win? TKN. I think they're just good for the sport. I think they're bi-coastal. They bring the East, Midwest, and West together instead of this whole bow down and worship me the regional thing people got going. They bring everybody together, no matter how much people wanted to make them be apart. No matter how much people wanted them to not be to be apart, them being together brought everybody together. It made the possible possible.
They're both young,
but I got to go Brazil.
And Kristen Nuss is just a superior athlete.
Right.
She is a superior athlete. Does she have
everything like up here? Everything.
Does she have the mental IQ to stay in it when it's close, when they're down? Does she have the leadership qualities to say,
one game without a tournament?
My partner is struggling. What do I have to do to get my partner to get out of that funk? Or my partner is on fire. What do I have to do to keep her there?
Yeah.
That's oftentimes the hard one.
But one day, 2 out of 3 sets, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Look, guys, my audience, don't get it twisted. I want them to win. I believe they can win, and if they beat the Brazilians, I'm no longer terribly surprised that they win because even though they had a bad track record with them, I ain't got the time. I just remember the last one. That was the one they won, right? But with styles making matchups, what a cool watch party that would be if it were all USA, right? I mean, and we would be less surprised because we know it and we saw it and we believe and we know that they can do. And
what's it going to take for them to stay focused, stay disciplined, keep that leadership and that confidence high?
That's not a future tense thing. That's a past tense thing, because they've done everything to prepare for this moment.
Yeah.
That is more like, looking back retrospectively, did I do everything that got me to this moment? Yeah. Is it enough to win? So to me, I'm not answering that question present and future tense. I'm answering that question based on what got them there. Because again, the highest stage, the most prepared, the most elite athletes in the world, all on this stage. One match, not a tournament, not like I got dehydrated from the previous 4 matches. One match, 2 out of 3. Let's go.
It could come down in the end to playoff basketball. Yeah. It could come down to coaching.
Like Qatar and the Swedes.
It could come down to coaching.
Qatar's is a well-coached team, and there's no doubt in my mind that
Jordan,
the only way they were going to beat the Swedes is like quadruple overtime.
Is
the
Jordan
15.
the right coach for that semifinal and final match?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be.
Anyone named Michael, dude. Anyone named Michael is ready for that moment. Like Jay-Z said, I'm psycho, I'm Michael. Say Michael, take your pick. Jackson, Tyson, Jordan, game 6.
I'm talking about Jordan Chang.
Oh, Jordan Chang.
Kelly.
He's not there. I think he's there, but I think Gustavo's coaching him. Gus is coaching him now for the Olympics. I don't think Jordan. I think Jordan might be there, but Gustavo's listed Gustavo's listed as a coach.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the men. I'll go first on this one. The question is: Anders Mole healthy? What is his health?
And Christian Sorensen.
If he's healthy, they're repeat champions, and we'll be right back on his podcast having a GOAT conversation. Mm-hmm. I think if he's healthy, not even the Swedes can stop them.
They're the
total package of good coaching,
right?
Like you said, ownership and owning, process, preparation, technique. His supercomputer is Allison Worthy.
Yes.
His supercomputer is Allison Worthy, and I hope everyone knows what I mean when I'm talking about that. Like in Denver, We saw, no, I'll go in better. How about Huntington Beach when they're playing Hop and Shaw? They're down 1-0. They're down 19-14, right? And it was almost like the whole time Allison's getting abused or getting blocked or missing balls. It was almost like his program was still uploading. But once the program said upload complete, that was you're behind.
Yeah.
And when he started getting higher on the block,
Right.
than the players did with their approach and jump. If he's higher on the block, the stationary position, that's your behind. Mm-hmm. That's your behind.
Yeah.
And Maul has the supercomputer.
Yeah.
And once the upload is complete, that's it.
We talked last time about just knowing how to win. And Mole and Sorensen, they know how to win.
Yeah.
So I think it's their fateful journey in the men's. They know how to do it. They can do it if they really want it. Barring any injury, barring any bad thing that might affect them. I talked to Miles. Miles texted me yesterday after their win.
Evans, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh my God, it feels so good to come out and get that first win in your first match." And they won handily.
But it's like an exhale. You're like, now I could just play volleyball.
They're in an easy pool.
But right now you could just play volleyball and not sweat the small potatoes.
They're not enjoying the food there in the Olympic Village. It's not. You're paying $500 for a ticket to go watch a session, which is 3 matches, right? What's his name? Patrick, Miles' dad.
Right.
I've sat down with him for an hour, and he said, Gene, Miles has got 11 aunts and uncles. There's 14 of us going to the Olympics, to Paris, and we're all huddling into, an Airbnb there, but we're paying $580 each for a ticket to go watch him in a pool match. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's almost $8,000 just to watch 3 matches.
Yeah. And Miles silenced a lot of critics. I mean, I was one of his. When he found that he went, when I was reading the social media posts and just the reaction and a little nonsensical interaction with Trevor Crabb, I told myself, I told myself, and this is what pisses me off. Me as an American, as a USA guy, I want someone going over there who in his heart of hearts believes he can medal, right? Which is why I was cheering for Trevor, because Trevor could have the worst day ever and still believes he's going to win, right? And Miles, when I saw him doing that, I saw a person who was just happy to be there. And my question, and I introduced this false dichotomy, are you happy to be there, or are you there to win a freaking medal? And what Miles showed me and other people who are his critics at this time, that 2 things can be true at the same time. That my question and this ultimatum was shaped in the form of the foundation of a false dichotomy. Right. I narrowed it down to 2 choices where neither one of them could be the answer, or both of them could be the answer. Where I was saying it's either one or the other. Yeah. And what Miles showed us, and this is a man who loves him, who did a post. I did a Mad Props Monday about, I met him in 2016. He was that Miles back then is the Miles now. The Miles no one knew and the Miles everyone knows, it's the same Miles. So he knows that my personal affection for him it cannot be questioned. But he also knows I'm a hater from New York. And he knows I was going to be like, Trevor, you had your chance. You sat for
guilty.
You had your
guilty till proven innocent.
Yes, exactly. No, but what I said was, Trevor, you had a year and it was yours to lose and you blew it, right? Yeah. And then I'm looking at Miles and I'm like, you wiped that freaking smile off your face. You wiped that smirk off your face right now. So I'm the hater in me. Yeah. Presented the false dichotomy, and Miles showed me, and I'm the only one that's letting my thing hang out there and admit it, because I got thick skin. But there are a lot of people who felt the same way as me that don't have the testicular fortitude to say it out loud. So I carried that water for a lot of doubters. Mm-hmm. But at least he knows it wasn't personal, because personally I want good things for him. Mm-hmm. And as a U.S. guy, I want to see him win.
Miles is a very likable fellow.
What a game, though.
And he's developed into a real competitor.
Yeah.
He has.
How about that over on 2, man? That square over on 2, man. I saw him do that in the Norseka qualifier against Case Barrett Olsen when he played with a Spencer McLaughlin. That's 2016. This is how far I go back, and he had the same happy face then.
Yeah, I know.
He's such a good dude.
I know somebody
man.
that grew up with Miles and played club with Miles and played a couple of tournaments with Miles and won an Open. I think they won the Laguna Open together. Pete Aronchek, young Pete.
Okay.
Not old Pete.
No, young Pete.
I played with old Pete back in Santa Monica back in the early '80s. He was one of the first big men on the AVP.
Right.
And his son, young Pete, I know now, and he's got a lot of fun stories about Miles. Miles has always just been that fun guy. You know?
But Miles knows I have every right to be critical. All right, you got one Hermosa Beach Open. He's in the finals with Avatar. The next Hermosa Beach Open, he doesn't even get to the because he loses the playing game with Marty Lawrence, right? So it leaves you scratching your head. Will the real Miles Evans please stand up? Guess what? He did. The real Miles. That was what we saw. Cause you can't fake it. There's no such Mobb Deep, a rap group said there's no such things as halfway crooks, right? You can't fake it on that stage.
So
either you are or you are not.
We can't talk about Miles and his path, his journey to the Olympics without mentioning Chase.
Yes.
Chase is, I always call Chase the smartest volleyball player I've ever known. The guy went and he made it in basketball, made his money in basketball. Now he's playing volleyball for the bragging rights and because it's his pure passion, it's pure joy for him. He's not going hungry. He's never going to starve, No. But by the same token, that guy, to me, is the ultimate competitor. He is a competitor. He's got
like you said, he's an IQ. He's smarter than 90% of the people he goes against.
Very, very high IQ. I'm not going to say he's the smartest guy. The smartest IQ, I think Miles Partain has an incredible on-court IQ.
Yeah.
I think Nick Lucena has an incredible on-court IQ. There are guys that...
Anders Mall,
there's a huge field of really smart guys out there. But Chase, with his athleticism, his drive, his competitiveness, his focus, his discipline, I think he is the perfect storm for Miles Evans.
That pool is the perfect storm.
Yeah, they've got an easy pool.
They're the 4 seed in that pool. It's probably the easiest pool in the Olympics, but at the same time... Again, ain't no such things as halfway crooks. You can't fake it to first place. They know they're gonna have to. They still have to win the 3 games.
Some guy at 16th Street. I was sitting out, on my little perch there, and some guy came. Hey, one of these guys play, and I said they play tomorrow. They play tomorrow at I forget. They played yesterday.
Right.
Their first match
against France. Yeah,
against France. And he said, "Are they playing a good team?" And I looked at him and I was like, "They're all good."
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a bad team there,
and that includes France. France
had a shoe.
France might have been the host, but that
still
team,
have a good team.
I think that team was in on points anyway.
Yeah.
So and guess what? They still have the crowd. I know it was a large USA base there, but there was so much to love about Evans and so much to love about Budinger. Talk about an introvert and a little bit of a showman. The healthy mixture, like you said, might create the perfect storm in the perfect pool. Miles, we love you, man. We'll be cheering for you all the way. By the time this episode comes out, your pool will be over, and everything we say will be Mystic Max because we know it all came true. All right, so cool. I got women again. I got the Brazilians, though will be categorized as a non-believer if my girls win, and you have the Americans, right? Again, great pick because styles make matchups, and stylistically, the only bad matchup for them really is Wilkerson and Melissa, right? Not even one of the best teams, but again, styles make matchups, right? It's why I can beat you and you could beat Rob and Rob could beat me. It's like this circular thing where there's there might be, and around Robin there's really no winner.
Yeah, it's hard to draw an equation from why that works that way.
All right.
Hey, I would like to give
Yeah.
a quick shout out to my new sponsor, Mikasa. And I got my national sales rep guy who gave me a great equipment deal just recently. Actually, the other day at the send-off party for the girls at 16th Street.
It was great.
I met with the Mikasa team there, Dan Cowart and
Okay.
his partner Nick. And by Saturday night, 2 days later, I had a box of equipment, all new balls and bags and shirts and everything like that. And
5. I only have 5 right now.
those guys,
I need a discount. I need a because I'm coach. I have 18 Wilsons, but right now I only have 5 Mikasas, and all 5 of them came from the motherload.
yeah.
Corey Burndell hooked me up with some.
You know, I kind of those balls here are like $75 to $85. Then you got to pay tax and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of a pain.
Oh, you keep them in a safe.
One of my coaches, now down in Brazil, people have 1/5 the money. They don't make the money down here
Right.
that people in the United States make.
Yep.
One of my coaches up in northern Brazil who comes down, one of the reasons why she came down in May was because she got a deal on 5 balls. She only had to pay $150 US per ball.
Jeez.
So I'm bringing her some balls. I'm bringing Pelé some balls. So
Yeah.
that's
All right, so we like it. That's why he's wearing the Mikasa.
So
and everyone knows why I'm wearing this. This, in the world of enlisted men to officers, get your battlefield commission. The Hater J-Way, baby. Or a warrant officer, at least. Sorry. Anyone else you'd like to plug in a particular website before we get out of here?
No, I'm good. I'm good. The Mikasa people have been very good to me, and Dan is a national guy. And when I started talking about Brazil, I was like, no problem. I take equipment down with me every trip I make down there. Again, I go down there 5-6 times a year, and I always bring equipment down. So I was happy to do that. So that's one of the reasons why that worked. They're real interested in promoting their brand and developing. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted young Dane here with me today, because we got to start early.
Yeah, we do.
It's time for him to start marketing himself in our image, in the image that's a worthwhile image for volleyball, and creating a brand, marketing himself, and taking part in these conversations. That's how he learns. That's how he gets perspective and clarity.
Nice.
Which
Put
is-
it in perspective.
Yes, yes.
All right, so lightning round. Ready? 60 seconds. Let's see if anything changed.
Okay.
Favorite comedian? He's like, I don't laugh. What are you talking about?
Guy by the name of Black.
Okay.
I like Black. I think his name is not Thomas Black. He was the coach.
Yeah,
Louis
I know,
Black.
Louis Black.
Louis Black.
Last good book you read?
Pillars of the Earth.
Nice.
Ken
La-
Follett.
Last good movie you watched? Big screen or small? Maybe at the house.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
We'll skip that.
I like Forrest Gump, Shawshank Redemption,
Nice.
the Green Mile.
Green Mile.
Anything where Frank Darabont directed.
There it is.
Green Mile, or
And he directed all that, huh?
he directed Shawshank and Green. He's a prison movie guy. Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption.
Gotcha. Pool or beach?
What's that now?
Pool or beach?
For volleyball?
Hang out, yeah.
Oh, I love the beach. Rio, the beach at Rio. is
Ice cream or
unbelievable.
cupcakes?
Ice cream,
Bourbon, vodka, or tequila?
tequila.
Favorite sport outside of volleyball?
You know it. Stickball.
Stickball. Favorite action film star growing up? I said Arnold a bunch of times, but my last few guests said Bruce Willis, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I forget Bruce Willis. I forget Jackie Chan. I forget Jean-Claude Van Damme,
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
I'm
I
going
don't
to
know.
pass on that one. I don't really have a big action hero
Alright,
guy
cool.
that I like.
Any favorite conspiracy rabbit holes? Mine is the JFK assassination.
Yes.
I
Friendly fire.
right. Yeah, I don't think he made the shot. I'm an expert in a bunch of weapons, and I guess I feel like I can't make that shot. He can, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe because he was a Marine. All right, guys. So I think that's all we got right now. Gene Dolan might love you guys, but me, I can't stand any. In fact, I'm out of here, all right? I had enough of you. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPhones and iPads, for all of you on your desktop, who runs the world? Us Old School Brothers. That's who runs the world.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
My
I really
man,
appreciate
Gene
it.
Dolan. This is episode whatever the option podcast. I'm Jason DeBeas. We're going to hit my music. We're out of here, brother. Come check out the Option Podcast on OptionDB.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.